It's Rhema Breakfast, you're with Andrew and Kat.
And we welcome to the studio a bastion of the New Zealand music industry and artist Derek Lind, who's not only a New Zealand singer-songwriter and musician, but he's also a graduate of a Bachelor of Fine Arts, so he paints a lot. Thank you so much for joining us, Derek. It's so cool to have you in for New Zealand Music Month.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Must be a pretty incredible thing to be able to look at the development of New Zealand music over the length of your career. I mean, you've been performing since, say, like the 1980s as well.
Yeah.
What strikes you when you look at, say, the state of Kiwi music, or maybe even Christian Kiwi music in particular?
Well, when I started, it wasn't a thing, really. It was just a scene. And then in the 80s and 90s, it became kind of an industry, you know. And I guess now it's kind of dialed itself back a little bit in so much as people aren't making and delivering music perhaps the same way they used to.
And what sort of role do you think New Zealand Christian radio has played in building up the New Zealand music industry in terms of the Christian music industry?
Yeah, well, it's been a fantastic support. I mean, you guys have supported me right through, not only by playing whatever stuff you could find that you could stand, but also this sort of thing where, you know, if I was about to embark on a tour or something, I'd often come in for an interview and you guys would promote it. So I'm deeply grateful.
Yeah, well, look, and we're grateful too to have, you know, had music to draw from throughout the years as well. And on a personal note too, I mean, we spoke to Julia Grace the other day, and she was saying how, you know, you often have to live kind of hand in hand with there's your creative career, and then there's the stuff you do to pay the bills as well.
Yeah.
How have you been able to sustain yourself with the level of output that you've had through the years?
I've painted a lot of houses in my time, but the last real job I had, I quit after 10 years, was a high school art teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I quit that in 1989, and I've just made it up since then as I've gone along. But lots of odd jobbing and stuff like that. But the music and the art has always taken priority.
Wow.
But so it's been quite difficult at times. And for a long time, I had a working wife, which was pretty handy, but it can be a bit of a tightrope. But we're still here.
Yeah, well, that's incredible. And like, I can imagine it's not easy being such a creative as yourself, like having to navigate this whole like complex world that we live in, where you got to pay the bills on one hand, but also you just want to create music and create art, and you want to have time for that. But then you got to set aside that time when you're not actually working to earn money.
Yeah.
But let's talk about how your faith has played a role in sustaining your creativity.
Well, it's always been fairly central to what I do. I've never sort of sought out to make music specifically for a specific audience, if you know what I mean. I just make music for anybody, really. I haven't aimed it at a target audience or demographic. But my faith, I trust, has been fairly central to my musical output. And whilst I don't write songs that are kind of like biblical tracts set to music, I trust people can garner some essence of my beliefs and my faith through what I've produced.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of a challenge behind, say, musicians, Kiwi Christian musicians, for example, too, to be like, what does it mean to be a Christian, quote unquote, Christian musician and write a Christian song? Have you had those kind of discussions with people through the years?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, lots of times. And but no, I just sort of write them as they come, and without, you know, as I say, a target audience in mind. And I try and tell the truth and make it rhyme, you know.
And, I like that.
And hopefully, you write in such a way that people can find a point of resonance in what you're doing.
So good to have you in here, Derek. And not only are you an incredible musician, but you're also an artist. And I'm really excited to hear about the stuff that you've been painting lately, because I can imagine there's quite a process that happens when you get into that space. So what have you been working on lately?
I've just completed 14 large paintings, the 14 Stations of the Cross, the traditional station. You know, it's a Catholic thing, it's a man-made thing. But I just took it on as an Easter project, and I knocked out 14 paintings in a month.
Wow.
And it was hard work. I really did work hard. But yeah, just as well, you're always trying to trick yourself into working.
I know the feeling.
And creating, you know, it's and it's a discipline. The creative process is really, if you want to write songs, you just start writing songs. They might be rubbish, but the process of working generates better ideas. So you don't walk around with a blank sheet of paper waiting for the songs to fall
from
onto
heaven.
the page.
Yeah, right.
You've just got to actually start doing the work.
Yeah.
And the process of working gets the creative mind happening and all that sort of thing. Yeah.
So I'm interested to know too how you keep that going in such a way that it doesn't just become work or become a slog. I know a lot of musicians, for example, or even painters, it's one thing to have it as a hobby or an interest, but suddenly when it's, your quote unquote job, then maybe all the joy falls out of it. How have you battled that?
Well, a lot of it is just drudgery. A lot of what you do is drudgery. Like when you're painting, a lot of the initial work is you're just slapping it on until you can stand it, And then you get to a point in the painting where the painting almost assumes a life of its own, or the song assumes a life of its own, and it takes it where it will, and you're kind of just following along in a way, that's the magic part of it, and that's when it's really exciting, when it's just starting to come together and starting to click. But up to that point, it's just work. It's just discipline and hard work, and like I say, you're always trying to trick yourself into getting into that mode.
Can I ask you a question about the songwriting process? Because often you pour your heart and soul into a song and it's deeply personal. What did you learn along the way about kind of separating yourself from the song and being able to objectively take on feedback and kind of grow without being hurt in the process?
Yeah. Well, it's got to be more than just catharsis, when you write. It's like, if you want to take a course in primal scream therapy, go right ahead. But don't make an album of it, and make me listen to it.
That's a great quote.
But so you've got to write songs that have a universality to them, that there's some point of connection with your audience. So you've got to care enough about your audience to engage them. And often that means not spoon feeding them. A lot of songs are so overt that there's no room for debate or discussion or dialogue. But if you couch your songs in imagery and symbolism and stuff like that, that allows the viewer to sort of, or the listener to engage and invest in interpreting the meaning and that sort of thing. So it's really about having respect for the listener or the viewer, and caring enough about them to say, I want you to be part of the dialogue that's going on between what you're listening to or what you're looking at.
So do you make a distinction then too when you're writing a song, say maybe for yourself versus this is one that I want other people to take part in? Because I imagine maybe you do a little bit of both.
Yeah, but I would say most of my songs I write for myself, and then I just foisted them on other people. But it is kind of a selfish act, but it can't be so selfish as to be purely indulgent. And that's what I say. It's not just catharsis. It's actually having something to say that will be of interest to someone else.
And we're talking about songwriting here, but I think this can be extrapolated to art as well. When you're painting something, you want it to be room for people to kind of put their own imagination into it and try and figure out what's going on and sort of have discussion around the imagery and the symbolism.
And what you see might be quite different to what I see.
True.
But it's all valid. So I try not to coach people into seeing it my way. You know what I mean? So there should be a degree of, and this is my main beef with a lot of Christian music, is that we're so scared of it being misinterpreted that we don't allow any room for interpretation. And so the songs can often become a wee bit one-dimensional.
That's so fascinating. Well, I just want to go back to your experience, because you taught art for 10 years at high school.
10 long years.
You invested into a lot of pupils and you saw them go into various different things. And what would your encouragement be to a young creative right now, whether they are a painter or a musician? What would your advice be to someone who's trying to find their feet? in this space?
Well, again, it's just work, and I wouldn't worry too much about. I'm not really interested in the industry that surrounds these activities. You know, I'm not really interested in the music industry. I'm not really that interested in the art investment industry and anything like that. I'm interested in the work, and so devote yourself to the work, and don't worry too much about all of the promotion that often goes with the industry. Just really, really concentrate on the work, and work to a point where you can be your own best critic. When you're starting out, you always want someone else's opinion. What do you think? Is it finished? Is it done? You know, what do you think? Eventually, you can hopefully you get to the point where you can make those decisions all by yourself about your own work, and your degree of your critical faculties do develop as you get older, I think, and you don't let as much rubbish get through the system. You know, so your output decreases as you get older. That's a natural thing, but you hopefully the amount of rubbish that you produce decreases as well.
Well, I kind of love your perspective though in being able to see it as work, and that's okay. Like we can have this maybe fantasy view of being in a creative field where it's just like, oh, suddenly it all flows to me. But sometimes it's literally you pick up the pen and start writing, you pick up the brush and start painting, right?
Yeah, it starts out as gibberish and then it ends up as something intelligible, you know, perhaps further down the track because you've worked through the gibberish.
Wow.
So you hope, right?
Yeah.
Well, we would love to play out another one of your great tracks, and we've got The Only Song I Got lined up. So would you be happy to share a little bit about the inspiration behind this?
That's about my wife dying, really. It's coming up to 12 years in July since I lost her. And this was one of the first songs I wrote after she passed. And, but yeah, it's a song about that. So not the most fun subject in the world, but I made a whole album pretty much based on that experience. In fact, I made it a double album just to draw out the misery. But it was, again, hopefully it's not just catharsis. Hopefully it has something for everybody that they can relate to.
I think everyone can relate to grief of some sort.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that with us.
Pleasure.
Amazing. I hope you enjoyed that as much as we did.
Yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe and turn your notifications on so you don't miss the next video.
We'll see you in the next one.